We're holding by the words nezek v'chatzi nezek on Daf Gimel, right? Okay. We thank Hashem that's able to learn Torah every day. It's about learning. We should have the base of Migdash immediately. Learning the leadership of the Binyamin and the sons of Tzin, and also for Shleima for Avram David Ben Sarah and Gedali Getzel. Yes, for my father and Miriam Madel. It's a special greeting for you to Kislev, right? What's it? Remember the greeting? There's a special greeting. It says in Hayom Yom that you greet each other and Yitzchak Kislev. Something pnimius. Darkei Chassidus. Okay. So in the Mishnah we learned that you need 3 judges for the following things: nezek, b'chatzi nezek, kulu, for damages and for half payment of damages. I want to ask straight away that nezek kind of chabalas. We had two lists over here. One was gezeles v'chabalas, robbery and injuries, and we said that takes 3. The nezek. What is nezek? Nezek is when someone gets injured, and you have to pay the 5 things. So one of those things is the damages. So nezek, is it referring to only a person that gets injured, or is it referring to an animal that gets injured? Let's say it's both. Whatever the case is, that's haina chabalas. That's the same thing as injuries. Person gets damaged or injuries. Why did we itemize it separately? We could have said only one of them, chabalas. That would have included the payment of nezek. It says mishum the kaboy lemisnei chatzi nezek. So taneinami nezek shalem. Because we wanted to say that there's the concept of half payment, that takes 3 expert judges. Over here we're talking about the expert judges. The first case, remember the last Gemara, the first list of the Mishnah, Dine Mamanus Bishleisha, was not expert judges. Now we're dealing with expert judges. So the expert judges we need expert judges for Chatzi Nezek. So Chatzi Nezek, so also Nezek. We listed that it's called Agav. Once we said Chatzi Nezek, half payment, we also say the full payment. Well, the Gemara says, hey, Chatzi Nezek nami chabalas. But Chatzi Nezek, paying half the payment, is also injuries, right? If a tame ox does injury, he pays half damages. So the Gemara says, Tanim Amayna v'Tana Knasa. Well, we wanted to divide it up into 2 categories because we wanted to have one of them is mamain and one of them is knas. The difference between mamain and knas, I think the Rashi over here spells it out, very interesting. But mamain, and it's coming up in the Rashi spells out the machlekes, it's coming up. But the mamain is restitution, is when you pay up something that's that's something there was a value that got decreased, you make that up. So the money got lost, so you make that up. Knas is a penalty that our main issue is that you shouldn't do it again, not the restitution, not the making up of the loss. The main issue is a penalty, right? There's no loss. Get the red light camera, there was no loss. They don't want you to do it again. You get a penalty. So this is totally
loss to the receiver.
No, there's no loss. You didn't cause any damage. Right? It's just a penalty. So the Gemara says, well, honey, this would work well according to the opinion that holds Palganiska Knasa. You have to remember back to Machlekes and Baba Kama and Daf Tesvav, 3 Masechtas ago, but there we said when you pay half payment, how does it work? There's one option is that really you're paying full payment, but the Torah is lenient on you and you only have to pay half. The other option is really you should be pater, but we don't want you to be extra strict, so we make you pay half. One way, really you should be paying everything, but we're lenient on you because your ox was tame, so we're lenient on you. The Torah is lenient on you. So that would be Chatzi Nezek is mamain. It's really a type of restitution. We just allow you to get away with just half. The other way is really you should be pater. because you didn't really have to guard your ox. It's tame, but you don't have to do it. It's why what you shouldn't. No, you should never have expected it. But we would like you from now on to do a little more better guarding. So we imposed on you this fine. That's a machlekes in the Gemara. Which way you view this? Different perspective on the tame ox.
So Tom and what?
Yeah, by a tam, there's a machlekes if it's the payment of a tam, if that's regular restitution or if that's a penalty. Should you be paying everything or should you be paying nothing? So if it's knasa, then we say, okay, the reason why we mentioned chabalis and the reason why we mentioned chatzi nezek is because we wanted to mention that when you need to go to expert judges, you need to go to them for penalties, you need to go for them for regular payments.
Will there also be a difference in who accepts the money?
Yeah, that's interesting. If it's a penalty, then the main thing is the person to pay. Yeah, but it turns out that we pay the other person, but the main thing is the payment of it. If it's mammon, the main thing is the receiving of it. The other person should get his money. Right? It depends which way to. Well, either way, someone has to pay, someone has to receive. So it doesn't really matter. The question is where the emphasis is.
Fine or penalty.
The fine is a penalty. I'm talking about if it's restitution. If you're making up.
Oh.
Is that what restitution means?
Yeah,
you're making up
the
loss.
But there's a difference. Like if the person receives a fine and that goes to the government or whoever's in control,
right?
That doesn't help the person that was damaged.
Right. Over here, though, all the fines of the Torah, they don't go to the Bezdin. They go to the person that was, whether it's a chatzi nezek, goes to the victim, and the same is with the girl that was raped, or it goes to her father. It doesn't go to the court. So but according to the opinion that says we don't have an answer if chatzi nezek, if half payment is really restitution, because then it's the same thing as chabala, injury, and there's no difference. Both of them need expert injury. It's the same thing. We didn't have to itemize it in two categories. Okay, even if we say that chatzi nezek is mammon, is restitution, and therefore injury and chatzi nezek doesn't really have a totally different category, that we should have to list it, itemize it separately. But there were other things that are a totally different category, which everyone agrees to. Kefel, a double payment, that's obviously a penalty, right? For someone that's should I be? Is it better if I'm connected? I'm back.
All right, now we hear you.
Okay. I don't know where I lost you. I just saw you. Everyone had like nice expressions on, and then it froze. So did you hear me talking about kefel? There's some kefel?
You were just starting. You didn't explain what kefil is for.
So kefel is for someone that stole. Someone that stole, not robbery, but he stole. He has to pay double, right? So he has to pay the principal plus another payment to the principal. So that everyone would agree is a penalty, right? That's not restitution. The first time that you paid was restitution. Now it's a double payment, or it's tashlumi abava chamisha, or if you have to pay 4 or 5 times, depending on if it was an ox or a lamb, you'd have to pay. For the lamb, you pay 4 times. For the ox, you pay 5 times if it was stolen and slaughtered and.
That one's different. 4 or 5 times is because the value went up.
No.
The first when they slaughtered that.
But let's say you didn't slaughter it. Let's say you just sold it. Doesn't have to do with the value of going up. If you once you transfer it, you stole it and you transferred it, or you slaughtered it, that's the halacha. Then you have to pay 4 or 5 times. Now that's clearly a penalty. That's clearly a penalty, the 4 or 5 times. So once we started to say penalties, so then we also said, actually the Gemara is not listing it as pen. Once you started to pay something that wasn't, we're categorizing it not as a penalty. Once the Mishnah was saying things that aren't just directly principal, it's not principal. Saying the Mishtalim Beresh means that it's not paid as a full principal payment. It's not paid as a full restitution because it's paid more than that. So therefore, Tananami Chatzi Nezek, Mamacheni Mishtalim Beresh. So therefore, we listed Chatzi Nezek, which also is not a full payment of principal. One is more and one is less, but whatever it is, it's not exactly principal, which means that but basically we're categorizing them differently than penalty, because if it's a penalty, then there's one opinion that wouldn't include Chatzi Nezek. So we're saying that it's not a penalty. We're saying not that it's not a penalty. But the reason why we're listing it is because we said other things that are not directly principal in the Mishtalim Beresh. Therefore, Chatzi Nezek is in the Mishtalim Beresh. We listed that as well. Oh, you said Chatzi Nezek. Now we're going to say Nezek. Once we said Chatzi Nezek, now we say Nezek itself. What's the greeting for Yitzhak Kislev? Do you remember? Shana Teva. I think it says like Shana Teva. Shana Teva.
Oh, what?
Shana Teva Tikasev Sichasem or something. It's a new year.
All right, yeah. I always try to memorize these long words.
Yeah, in Chabad, if you don't know the greeting, they look at you like a newcomer.
Yeah.
You got to say it's right. Shleisha Minalan. Now we ask the big question. We gave the answer already because Rashi mentioned it before. But now it's the big question. We're talking about judges, right? How do you know that you need 3 expert judges? Sorry? Yeah, there you go.
Siri?
It's Yom Yom. You'll see.
It's in the
Already?
Yom Yom.
It's in the Yom Yom.
Oh,
It's in today's Yom Yom.
Yeah. The Tanarabanan was taught in the Brisa. The owner brings the watchman to the court, to the judges. Elikim is the judges. It says Elikim. Elikim means the judges. So that's 1. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to get what's called minyana, not manana. We're going to get minyana, a number out of each time it mentions the word Elikim, which means judges. And those 3 times that it's going to mention Elikim, it's going to tell us 3 judges. The Gemara does this by other things also. The walls of a sukkah. It says the word sukkah 3 times. That teaches me that there's 3 walls. Yeah, 2, and then the halacha mishmesina 2 walls and a half. You'll see later. But here we have Arikan Echad. Ad Elikim Yavid Bashneim. To the judges comes the word of both of them. So that's Arikan Shnayim in the same pasuk or pasuk after whatever. And then that's we have 2 now. Asher Yashi and Elikim, who the judges will find guilty. Arikan Shleisha. So that's 3 judges. Divrei Rabbi Yeshia. That's the words of Rabbi Yeshia. Rabbi Yeshia says that we know 3 judges from these 3 times that it says Elikim. Rabbi Yonasan says Rishon Tchilas Nemar Bein Darshan Tchilas. Rabbi Yonasan brings up an interesting point. He says that you can't say that the first mention of the concept is extra and it's coming to teach you a number of how many judges. I had to say it once. Once it says it once, then afterwards you can use pronouns. But you can't use pronouns before you have the first mention. If you wanted to say you take him, you could have said you take him there. Or they. You don't have to say judges, but you had to say judges once. So Rabbi Yonasan says that I'm only going to end up with 2 times because one of them you can't learn from. We start from the second one, that when it says they come to the judges, comes the word of both of them. Harikan echad. That's only one reference. Asher Yoshin Elikim, who the judges find guilty. Harikan Shnayim. That's the second reference. Bein Bezdin Shakel. So I only have two, but I don't want to have an even number of judges. So Meisifan Alei Meidachad. So we add one more. So he only has two judges from the pasuk, but we naturally have to have an extra one because we can't have an even amount of judges. So Harikan Shleisha, that's how we got the three. The Torah tells me two, and we have to add another one. Okay. Neima b'darshan tchilas k'miflki. This is exactly the machlaikas. Can we learn from the first reference a number, or do we say that the first mention of something we can't learn from? Machlaikas Rabbi Yeshia and Rabbi Yonasan. That's what comes out. The first mention of the term judges, does that teach me that you need another judge? Mar Savar, this master holds Darshan Tchilas, which is Rabbi Yeshia. He says three judges straight from the words. Mar Savar and Rabbi Yonasan says, Ein Darshan Tchilas, that you can't learn from the first mention. The Gemara says, like, it's not necessarily the Machlaikas. The Kuli Alma, everyone agrees, Ein Darshan Tchilas. You can't learn from the first mention. And Amalach Rabbi Yeshia says, Imkein Nema Krav and Ikrav Balabais ala Shefer. The fact that the first mention didn't need to be the word Elikim. It could have been a different word. It could have just said judges. Shefet is the judge. The fact that it uses the word Elikim, that's coming to teach, there's normally, we don't learn from the first mention, but over here we can, because even the first time it was mentioned, it wasn't mentioned in a typical way. It said it in an atypical way. My El Elikim. Why does it say El Elikim to the judges? Elikim could mean other things also, but it means Elikim. The word Elei Haaretz means the strong ones of the land. Elikim is powerful. Yeah, I don't know how it's translated to English, but the connotation is powerful, which also means that power is also given to angels. Elikim means seeing your face is like seeing the face of an angel. Remember in the parsha, last week's parsha, right? It says over there, Elikim, Kriyas Pnei Elikim, like seeing the face of an angel, which was referring to the wrestle. And over here means the judges, or it could be referring to Hashem. But why does it choose the word Elikim when it could have said directly judges? Shema min ala it's coming to tell me the number. So normally, even Rabbi Yeshua would say that I can't learn from the first mention. Over here, he says I can because of the selecting that the choice of words wasn't the typical choice.
In this situation, they have this one papers, is the result the same? Here they didn't change. It's here they have different opinions, but the result didn't change still. Church.
That's not so common. Phil is pointing out that we have a machlaikas, but it's a machlaikas in the reasoning. It's not a machlaikas in practical. The result is the same. We have three judges. Question: how did we get to this number? It's machlaikas in how we got here, but in the end, we're here. Right? So
now we know for sure it's three judges.
we know it's three judges. The question is, which what was the directions? Yeah, nobody's. Hill's pointing out that it's machlekes just in rationale. It's not a machlekes in practical.
It sounds like they have this happen like other times.
Yeah.
I was wondering if the other times the outcome was the same.
Sometimes the Gemara will tell us the Mayin Afkamina and would come up with some difference. And I think maybe over here the Gemara will say that there's a difference. Based on the Gemara before, that there was, if let's say there are two judges, maybe that's connected to the Gemara before. Shmuel said that two judges that made a judgment still nikru bezdin chatzov, but dinayim din, but it's still considered a judgment. So maybe that would only fit with Rabbi Yonasan, because he says that you need. Actually, maybe that would fit with the opinion that said you only need one judge. According to Rabbi Yonasan, the Torah says I need two judges. but I need to add another one because to make it equal, to make it odd, to make it an odd number. But if the maybe he would accept the two judges, and maybe Rabbi Yeshua wouldn't accept. So it comes out that there could be nafkaminas based, it could be practical differences based on the rationale. What do you say, Rav Naftali? You agree?
Yeah, it's a standard way. And what I'm thinking is that, I don't know if it's in this Gemara or if it's just in the Yerushalmi, there's a whole discussion by of the opinion of Rebbe about this, which is very interesting. He said he agrees that you exclude the first one because it is the thing itself. But then he says, Elohim, you have to deal with the fact that it's a plural. So that refers to, that's 2 plus 2, and then you
Right.
add a fifth because it's unequal. So
We
what
have
does
it on
it
the
have?
bottom
Oh, it's here also?
page, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, coming up. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Okay. So now it says, what does Rabbi Yonason do? What's Rabbi Yonason's opinion? The fact is that we have an extra mention of the word alikim. It should be 3. Now, he says the first mention wasn't you can't learn from, but but Rabbi Yeshua said, yeah, but the first mention was it selected a different term, an atypical term that teaches us that you can learn another judge. The Gemara says, Rabbi Yonason, listen to Almanakat. No, it's all the time people say like that. With Amri Inchi, people say, Mandisle Dina Likarav Lagabi Dayana. You go to the judge, and Elikim means the judge. In other words, the Elikim means the expert judge. And when people talk, they don't say, let's go to arbitration. They say, let's go to the judge. And so that's what it means over here also. It's not, yeah, it's maybe not typical, but no, people talk like that. So you can't say that we can learn from this reference. Rabbi Yeshua, Leslie, Besdin, Naita. Where is the question? Why really does Rabbi Yeshua actually need the extra term Elikim to learn from? Why does he need Elikim to learn from? All he needs is 2, and then we'll automatically add the 3rd because the Besdin can't be an even number; it needs to be an odd number. Exactly like Rabbi Yonason says, it must be that according to Rabbi Yeshua, you're allowed to have an even number of judges. And so therefore the Torah needs to specifically tell me that I need 3. Because if the Torah didn't tell me 3, I would have thought that 2 is perfectly fine because he's not concerned about an even number of judges. We'll have an even number of judges. That's what the Gemara is saying. The Rabbi Yeshua would hold like that. Problem is, Vatanya, we have a brisa that says, Rabbi Eliezer ben Eishel, Rabbi Yossi Aglili Aimer. Rabbi Eliezer, the son of Rabbi Yossi Aglili, he says, quoting a verse, Matal Malaymar, what's the meaning of the following verse? To go after the majority. You need to have a bezdin that has an odd number. Right, that means leaning, which means it has one side is heavier, right? That means an odd number. Right. So I have a verse that says that I need a bezdin needs to have an odd number. So if I'm going to have anyways a bezdin that's going to need to be odd, so let the Torah just say twice Elikim, and then I'll have to add an extra one. Why does Rabbi Yeshua need to have 3 times Elikim? Sabalak Rabbi Yehuda, he goes like Rabbi Yehuda, Damar Shivim. It says that you need 70 judges. Remember? There's a machlekes in the Mishnah. If you need 71 judges or 70. We learned from Moshe Rabbeinu that Moshe, it was 70 judges plus Moshe Rabbeinu. And Rabbi Yehuda says, no, don't count Moshe into it. It's just 70. It means according to Rabbi Yehuda, you're allowed to have 70 is an even number, 35 and 35. It's an even number. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, you can have an even number of judges. So Rabbi Yeshua is going to follow him. What do you do with the pasuk? So later on, we'll have to do something else with that pasuk. But meanwhile, we're saying no. He follows like Rabbi Yeshua follows like Rabbi Yehuda. That really we could have had an even number of judges. The Torah has to tell me 3 Elikim to tell me that you have three judges. The Tanan, it was taught in the Mishnah. Sanhedrin Gedola in our Mishnah. The large Sanhedrin, was of 71 judges. Rabbi Yehuda says it's only 70. The Gemara says, 1 second. Maybe it's an exception. maybe by the 70 judge, the Sanhedrin, the big Sanhedrin, over there, because there's so many judges, Pasuk says 70, maybe over there it's allowed to be even. We don't think it's going to be, but such a large number, it's going to be mamish even. Maybe we can make a Sanhedrin even, the big one. The smaller ones, maybe those have to be odd. We have no source to tell me that Rabbi Yehuda would agree that the smaller courts can be even also. The machlekes in the Mishnah was only about the Sanhedrin Gedolah, about the 70 judges, because it says in the pasuk, "B'shar beidinim mishametle." Do we know that Rabbi Yehuda says that the smaller courts can be even? He would hold 22 judges. He would hold that you only need 2, or unless you have a pasuk that tells me that you need 3. By the maybe I'll say, well, why should there be a difference? It's the same thing, right? Even for 70, even for the big Sanhedrin, be even for the other ones. But Tanan, the problem is that it's not so, because smicha sakena varifa segla b'shleisha divreb Shimon. When it came to the animal that was brought as a sacrifice, if the congregation sinned, so the elders would lean on this on the animal to do the confession for the congregation, and the breaking of the neck of the calf if someone was murdered between cities. We said that's 3 judges. Divrei Reb Shimon. Rabbi Yehuda Imer b'chamisha. Rabbi Yehuda says 5 judges. But I mean, in my time with Rabbi Yehuda, we're still at an odd number, right? We're at an odd number. So what's the reason why we have an odd number there? 5. It says v'samchu. They'll rest their hands. That's shnayim. That's 2. Samchu is they, right? The vav at the end is a plural, 3rd person plural, masculine and feminine. Ziknei, the elders, is really sometimes that mem. Like what you're saying, like in the pasuk with some tem. No, on a verb, you don't use tough. On a verb, you use a tough. Like,
that one judge.
oh yeah, that's going to come up soon. Okay, but 1 second. So ziknei is also plural. It's the word is zikanim, but in the smichus form, it drops it. What was the full pasuk there? V'samchu. Yeah, ziknei ha'eda. It says, right? Ziknei ha'eda. Yeah, so it's zikanim shel ha'eda, but you dropped the mem. So ziknei is the plural. Ve'in best in shak. Okay, so you have 2 plus 2, and what does Rabbi Yehuda say? Which is ve'in best in shak. Look at this. Rabbi Yehuda holds that you need to have an odd number for a bezdin. He didn't say that by the Sanhedrin Gedolah. He said 70, but it came to the number to the 5. He said it starts with 4, but you can't have an even number. So you see, Rabbi Yehuda holds that when the smaller bezdin, it needs to be in bezdin shekels. Back to Rabbi Yeshia, why do we need 3 times the word elikim? Only need to have 2, and then automatically you can't have an even number. It has to be an odd number. We'd have 3. And you don't answer me that Rabbi Yehuda holds like that. Also, he doesn't hold like that. So it says the Rabbi Yeshia adifim mid Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yeshia is actually stricter than Rabbi Yehuda because Rabbi Yehuda b'Sanhedrin Gedolah delesli. Rabbi Yehuda only holds that by the Sanhedrin Gedolah doesn't need to be an odd number; it could be an even number. Habashar beidin eslei, but by the smaller bezdin, it could be it can't be an even number; it needs to be an odd number. Rabbi Yeshia b'shar beidin anami leslei. Rabbi Yeshia, he goes a step further than Rabbi Yehuda. So in other words, he holds like Rabbi Yehuda plus. Rabbi Yehuda holds only by the Sanhedrin Gedolah it doesn't need to be odd, but by other Bati Dinim it does. Rabbi Yeshua says even by other Bati Dinim it doesn't need to be. It needs to be. It doesn't need to be odd. It could have been even if the Torah doesn't tell me specifically that it needs to be 3. Yeah, that's why I need the 3 times Elikim to tell me that I have 3 judges. Okay. Now the Gemara says, "Velahai lintis mayavidli." But we had a pasuk before that tells me that we can't have an even bezdin. It says you have to. It says lintis achrei rabim lahatis, that to be lenient, to vindicate, you go after the majority, which means that you have to have a bezdin. That's odd. The Gemara says no. Mukim la b'dini nefashos. We'll say that that's talking about dini nefashos. Now, I think what this means is, tell me if in notes it's correct. I think what it means is that by dini nefashos, we said before that you don't follow the majority to make someone guilty. You only follow the majority to make them innocent. To make them guilty, to exonerate, you can have the majority. To find them guilty, you have to have a majority of 2. So what the pasuk is saying, that lintais is telling me this halacha of the difference by dinei nefashos, that if I need 1 or 2, depending on if it's exonerating or making guilty. Aval dinei mamanas, but by dinei mamanas, there's no such thing as guilty by dinei mamanas. If one person is exonerated, then the other person is guilty. There's no such thing as by dinei nefashos when it comes to a person. So there could be guilt and there could be exonerated. But when it comes to monetary law, you owe him. Every case is that. If one person is guilty, the other one is exonerated.
Exonerated, could that also mean like can't find you guilty? Therefore, you're not innocent because we can't find you guilty. Is that exonerated?
Yeah. So Avaldin Mamanas like Elohadithan, the Gemara says 1 second. So Dini Mamanas, you're allowed to have an even number in the court, according to this. Hadithan, Shlaimim Zakai. Two people say he's innocent. No, this okay. This must be Dini Nefashos. 2 people say that he's innocent. And one person says that he's guilty. Then Zakai, you follow the majority. 2 people say that he's 2 people say that he's guilty. And one person says that he's innocent. Then he's chayiv. We are following the majority here. It says name it like Rabbi Yeshia. Maybe this doesn't follow Rabbi Yeshia. Now, you have to accept something here. What the Gemara is assuming now, this is all in assumptions, is that if you hold that you need an odd number of judges, what that means is that I need to get a majority to rule, and that's good enough. I don't need the entire Beis Din. It doesn't need to be unanimous. I just need the majority. That's why I need an odd number of judges. But comes along Rabbi Yeshia, and he says that you don't need an odd number. It's just the Torah said that you have an odd number. But if the Torah didn't say 3, if the Torah would have said 2, I wouldn't have known automatically that I need to add another one. Because whatever the number the Torah says is fine. It could be even. Now, if that's the case, how could it be even? What are we going to do? Because according to Rabbi Yeshia, the Gemara is thinking right now that really I need to have the entire Beis Din to rule unanimously, not majority. The Gemara says, so how could this be? I have this say Rabbi Yeshua argues it. Name it like Rabbi Yeshua. I have this Mishnah that says that if you have a majority, then either innocent or guilty. And it doesn't fit with Rabbi Yeshua, because according to Rabbi Yeshua, it needs to be unanimous, not just the majority. It says a filu tema Rabbi Yeshua. We could even say that this follows Rabbi Yeshua. Why? Because Ma'asila bekal v'chaim midin nefashos. We'll learn from din nefashos. Ma din nefashos techmira mrachman azil basaruba. I know by din nefashos I have to follow the majority, because it says that you follow the majority. That you follow the majority by cases of capital punishment. So dinim mamanis like kolskin. So for sure you should follow the majority by dinim mamanis, and you don't need the unanimous view. You only need the majority view. So in that case before that, Shnai Maimra must be Dini Mamanas. We're saying that by Dini Mamanas, you follow the majority also. How do you follow the majority Dini Mamanas? Like we thought you need unanimous. The Mishnah, the Gemara now tells me that even according to Rabbi Yoshia, you don't need a unanimous view in the court. You only need the majority. Even though Reb Shimon says that the court doesn't need to be made out of an odd number, unless it's 3, it needs to be 3. Yeah. Right.
So what's I'm trying to follow the logic here, the call v'komer. Is he saying the call is that with Dina Nefashos, you only need 11,
Right.
you only need 12 to acquit. Therefore, you only need a simple majority in Dine Mamanos?
Yeah, if you don't need a unanimous ruling.
But in Dine Mamanos, you can also you can also find somebody's chayav with 1 extra.
Right. That's an interesting point.
He's pulling out 1 part and
There's
using
one
it to.
detail that's slightly
Not right.
than that. Yeah, it's a good point. Taisus over here has the same question that he had in Bapakama when the Gemara says that Ein Holchen b'mamen achar harayiv, that you don't follow the majority when it comes to money. Remember when we had, if you call a kad a chavis, if you call it this, most people buy an ox for this and for plowing. We said, well, you can't follow the majority. And now over here we're saying you do follow the majority. That's Taisus' question, the same point. Okay. It makes a difference between a statistic and the majority that you have right here. It's a different type of. Right. That was another point that you look at the price. So we had to figure out that the prices were the same. Yeah. Okay. We're holding by Tanur Rabbanan. Starting the Brisa. Dina Mamras B'Shleisha. Monetary cases have 3 judges. Rabbi Yomer B'Chamisha. This is Rabbi Naftali. This is Rabbi. Rabbi says that you need 5 judges. Today, Shetigmar Din B'Shleisha. You know why you need 5? Because you need the majority, and the majority should be. How are you going to have a psak? In the end, you're going to have a psak with just 2. If it's only 3, you're going to have 2 people making the ruling. But really, you need 3 people to make the ruling. That's why you need a court of 5. You have the majority, which is.
What about, we still have a majority?
Yeah, you can have a majority of 3, but the majority of 3 is only 2. And Rebbe's saying that he wants the psak to come from a 3. So what's 3? The majority of 5. So he needs a court of 5 so that the psak should come from 3. The Gemara says, "What's the problem? You have a majority of 3 as well." Yonatan and the Gemara asked the same question. So the Gemara says, "No, what he means is like this: you want to have the conclusion with 3. Alma Ksabar, he must hold. Salasa, when it says 3, Kiksiva Bigmardina Ksivi. When it says 3 judges, because of Elikim, it's 3 times. So that's referring to the Gemardin, the conclusion of the case needs to be the 3. That's what he's learning. Not the original part of it, not the hearing. The verdict.
Still have a consensus of 3, that's 6. 2 out of 3 is 6.
Yeah. But the word Elikim says 3 times. So it doesn't say it 0.6 times.
Yesterday when they were at 2 judges, it didn't mean like first and 3 and then 2 judges.
No, I meant 2 for the hearing. Right. Megadif Rabavo. How do they translate Megadif? Surprise, that's what they say?
Like a gesture of surprise.
Ridicule.
Rabavo was surprised. Ridicule. Okay. That sounds more like Megadif. He says, Elamayata, according to this, according to you, that you need the verdict to come from the number that the Torah gives, That's why you needed 5 judges in the beginning to get 3. According to you, to have a Sanhedrin, you're going to need 141 judges so that you could be able to conclude with 71 to have the verdict. You should need 45 judges to have the Kadesh Digma Din. You should have 23 in the verdict. Ella rather is Felicia Misham Rachmana. Yishasa Sifa Shivim. Rather, he says the Torah says that you gather 70. That means from the time of gathering, you only need 70, not for the verdict. And from the time of judgment, you have the 20 and the 2 Eidas, right? So too, really, even at the time of judgment, really you should only need 3. Time of the Rebbe. So what's the reason for Rebbe? So this is what Rebbe Naftali was saying. It says Asher Yarshion Elikim. Now the word not Elikim, but the word Yarshion is a plural. Yarshion means the yud at the beginning of a word, and it means he. A yud at the beginning of the word and the vav at the end means they. Right? Yishmeru.
Yep.
Right? They future tense. Shamru. Shamru is they past tense. Yishmeru, they future tense. So for masculine, for feminine, it's Tishmarna. But anyway, Yarshin is a plural third person. So I say Yashin Elikim is Trey. That's already 2. Nemer Elikim Lamata, and it says Elikim Yashin Elikim, which meant 2, because they will find guilty, right? V'nemer Elikim Lamayla, and it also says Ad Elikim Yavi Dvar Shneim. 2 Elikim will come, right? Ma Lamata Shneim, just like the Elikim that it says later is 2, because it says Yashin, which is a plural. Aflamayla Shneim, also above it's 2. Now I have 2 plus 2 is 4. Bein Besdin Shakel, and I can't have an even Besdin. So Rebbe's not learning like the assumption that we had before, that he needs a verdict to come from 3 people. Rebbe's not learning like that. Rebbe's learning that the Besdin itself needs to be 5. Because I have 4 in the Torah, plus I can't have an even Besdin. So it needs to be odd, so I have to add. The Rabbanan, what do the Rabbanan do? Rabbanan that say you only need 3, Yashion Ksiv, it says without Yashion without a Vav. Yashion without a Vav would be, by the way, the Nun, that's throwing you off. The Nun at the end is just stylistic. It doesn't tell you if it's plural or anything. Yeah. So the Rabbanan say Yashion, that you have to look at the writing of it. The way it's written, it's written. If you look at just the Hebrew text without the vowels, it says Yarshi'an, not Yarshi'un. Without the vowels, you would read it. It's the shuruk, 3 dots, the diagonal 3 dots that give you the u sound. That's the nekudes. Right. That's the way we read it. But the way it's written, if you just look at the text, it would be a singular. And so that's why they say that you only need 3. Amar Rab Yitzchak bar Yosi, Amar Rab Yechanan. Rab Yitzchak bar Yosi says the name of Rab Yechanan, or Rab Yosef, Yitzchak bar Yosef. Yeah, okay, let's leave it right here.
Word stop.
Okay. I'll leave it right here.
We know the word quit, we don't know the word stop.
Continue.
Shekaya, have a good Shabbos.